Hello and welcome to Real Adult Wisdom. I am Becky Schaefer, your host, and I'm excited to have Laura from Texas on as one of my guests. Welcome, Laura.
Hello.
We are empty nesters and loving life. And so there's actually going to be a series on becoming and being and living an empty nester life. Um, so we're going to talk about how becoming an empty nester can be definitely an enriching phase of our life once we adapt to the transition. After years of raising children and giving all of our sweat, blood, money, cars, everything we own, everything getting ruined that we own to our kids, and learning how to explore new passions and also rediscovering ourselves. So we both have become empty nesters. I'm a little fresher. Is fresher a good word? That means I smell good, right?
For sure.
Um, I'm a little fresher than Laura, a year and a half. And you're what, like 4, 3?
I'm 3 years in.
3 years in. That's what we're doing now. 3 years into the Life 2.0, and
Yeah.
I'm a year and a half in. Um, so we're going to talk about, instead of viewing it as a loss, seeing this as a new beginning, a chance to invest in yourself, create new memories, enjoy quiet moments, which was really hard at first, and how being an empty nester opens doors to possibilities you may have set aside, or meeting new friends like Laura, or moving and doing crazy
Yeah.
things, and all the adventures and fulfillment that has come our way since our kids have flown out of the nest. So,
Mhm.
Laura, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm excited.
Um, I think at first we were going to talk about preparing to become an empty nester, but I'm not really sure this is something you can prepare for. And I like what you said earlier. Actually, it's like preparing for a death. Like you can't really prepare for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can attempt to prepare for
Yeah,
something knowing that it's coming, but then even when it comes, it's hard. You still have to do, you're still going to grieve. We're still grieving. We're losing our kids. They've been our everything for the 18 years or however long they've lived at home, and then they're moving out. It's a big change.
yeah. And I know my youngest graduated. Oh gosh, May of 23. Yeah, May of 23.
Mhm.
And I moved to Asheville, North Carolina, August of 23.
I
So
love that.
I became an empty nester, moved to a new state, started a new job, and I knew one person. Like, talk about like a shocker. But at first, like, the boys came here with me. We went and explored Asheville together. They helped set up like their room, which is the guest room, really.
Mhm.
Now I can call it the guest room, but I used to call it the boys' room, and I even have like their stuff in there. And now it is officially called the guest room because I've had a year and a half to transition and be
Yeah.
okay with it. And then they left, and I was like, oh my God, this is really weird. Like I have to cook for myself. Like I did not know what to do. I actually went through a grieving process. Like I was really sad. I was lonely. I was lonely for the first time in I
Mhm.
don't know how many years. Like I literally sat here like, oh my God, I don't have a kid together.
Something Yeah,
Yeah.
and something you brought up earlier was saying sitting in those feelings, sitting in that loneliness and, you know,
And that was actually a
facing it.
good thing, to sit in that loneliness for a minute, because it allowed me to reflect. It allowed me to acknowledge and accept this whole wide range of emotions I was having, um, the sadness, the anxiety, and I even felt some relief, believe it or not.
I understand that.
Yeah, like it was weird because it's like I'm not putting the toilet seat down. I'm not picking up dirty dishes or 20 water bottles, or, like things that would drive me crazy. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I left for work and came home and everything was still where it was, like clean. and I still
Yeah.
had my food, like, my food didn't get eaten, and my
I know.
like, my stuff didn't disappear.
Yeah.
And so that was weird, but I really took advantage also of where I moved, and I know you so we took advantage of 2 different things. So, when my kids were gone, I took advantage of where I live driving up the parkway, watching the sunset and the sunrise, and I wrote pieces of rediscovering myself. Like, who the heck am I now? Like, when people say, "Who are you?" and I'm like, "Well, I'm a mom. I'm a teacher. I'm a life coach." No, who
Mhm.
are you? Like, who that's not who you are. That's what you do.
Yep.
Who are you?
Yep.
And so I got to explore mountain towns. I got to explore the parkway and see things that I've never got to experience in my life. And then you got to drop, like, you share yours. I love your story of dropping your daughter off.
So fun. So I dropped my daughter was going to, she's my youngest, and she was starting college a couple states away. So that was another hard thing. She was moving out of state, which was really tough because at that point it was just me and her. She was my best friend. She was, my one person left at home. And so when she left, I decided to take this trip. I had never taken a long road trip on my own. And so I packed up my car with all her stuff and then all of my stuff on top of the car. And I drove her and dropped her off and moved her in. And then she was ready for me to go almost immediately. You move them into the dorm and she's like, bye. Are you sure you don't want me to hang out? And so I jumped in the car and then I took off and I went on this 2 week long road trip by myself across the country. And it was the most amazing experience. But that was my transition into being an empty nester, and it opened up so many doors. Just kind of like it was a great way for me just to kind of kick things off, because I told you when I drove away from leaving her, I mean, I would think that I would be on the ground, pulling over in the fetal position in my car, because that's how you kind of feel, right? But when I
Mhm.
left there knowing that I had something to look forward to and going to do this trip, like an instant, I'm rediscovering myself. I'm taking off and doing this. Um, I was so excited when I left. I'm like, okay, bye. I'll see you later. And then I took off and then I drove to a beautiful place and worked for the rest of the day. I mean, just, yeah. So it was pretty amazing.
So I think when talking about preparing, which
Mhm.
I think that's a wide word, I think one piece of advice that I would give people that are getting ready to become an empty nester is, as soon as you drop them off at college or as soon as they move out, plan a little trip.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
somewhere.
I think that's so important because it gives you something to look forward to. Because if not, then you're just coming home and you're just immediately sad because you're dropping them off and you're coming home immediately to that quiet without anything to look forward to. You've got to give yourself something to look forward to.
So you can come home lonely after that.
Yeah, 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 but you're refreshed.
Refresh lonely, yes.
Yeah. I would rather come home lonely having just gone on an amazing trip,
Yes.
than saying goodbye to your child, feeling that just, feeling your heart almost rip out. I mean, everything is changing right then. That is the moment when everything is changing in your life and in theirs. And it's that reminder. And if you go and, it is so
Yeah.
important to sit in those feelings, like we said, but I think it's more important to first give yourself something to look forward to make that transition into it a little bit easier.
And when you're on these trips, like, my trip was moving, so I felt like I was on this constant trip for a
Yeah.
long time, probably for a good year, literally, I felt like I was on
Yeah.
this trip. I mean, I had to work, but then it's like, I went to work, but then from 3 o'clock on, it's like, "Oh my god, I can go do this or go hike this waterfall or go do this," like, stuff that people actually come here to go on
Mhm.
vacation for. Um, but I took a lot of time, and I know you did too, like, time to reflect on the years that we spent raising our kids. And I think I got caught up at first, like, oh man, I could have done this better. And, maybe my youngest son wouldn't gone through some certain things if I would have made different decisions. And so I found myself probably for a few days beating
Mhm.
myself up. And then I'm like, no, 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 no. You did the best you could in that moment with what you
Mhm.
knew at that moment. And I think we all do as parents. So instead, I decided, you know what? I'm going to reflect on what they're doing
Mhm.
good. My kids are in college. They're healthy. They're alive. They have goals. Okay. It might not be the goals I wanted them to have, but they have their goals and they're doing it. And they're now like 23 and
Mhm.
20. Um, and they're doing it. Like they're happy. They're happy kids. So I raised happy human beings that are healthy, um, that will then hopefully in turn contribute a positive to our
Yeah.
society.
We can only hope, right? I think, but like you
Yes.
said, in the reflecting part, I think that's just such a natural life process in general. When, from being a mom to anything else to looking back, even if you separate me from even talking about the mom side, just reflecting on my younger years.
Mhm.
But, since we're talking about the empty nester thing, I just think that's important to always, of course, remind yourself, of course, we're going to always beat ourselves up. I did the same thing. Oh my gosh, I should have done this. I should have told her this. I should have taught her this before she left. What? And I went through all the, did I teach her this well? Did I, it's like everything comes flooding back the moment you kind of drop them off to me, um, and you do that reflecting, but it's as long as like with anything in life, our perspective matters the most. So if we can look back on
Mhm.
all these things as a mom, yes, and then just look back on the positive things. You know what? I did do this right, and I did love her, and I did the best that I can, because even us as parents, I still remind my kids to this day, remember, this is my first time being a mom. I'm also learning,
Right.
just like you're learning to grow up. This is my first time being a mom. This is my first time being an empty nester. Give me some grace too. And then just, but you have to definitely give yourself grace when you're doing that reflecting, because we can beat ourselves up, because you're
Yes.
like, I don't know, it's like life is flashing, flashing before your eyes right
Right.
then when they were 5 years. Oh my gosh, did I do this right? Did I, train them up right? There's all these things that we can say that we wish we did, just like we do when we lose someone. Same thing. We look back
Yeah.
and, was I a good enough friend? Was I a good enough granddaughter? Did I do this right? But we have to really kind of check ourselves and focus on the good things that we did do right. They're going to be okay. They're going to figure it
Right.
out. Yeah.
They are, and they have been,
Yeah.
which all well, there's 4
Oh,
kids among the 2 of us, but yes, they're all doing great, and you're gonna get ready to be a
I'm so
grandma.
excited.
That is
Yeah.
exciting. Um, so yeah, so I don't think I didn't really plan for the transition. I really didn't plan on this rediscovering who I was, because you don't realize that you don't really know who you are until your kids leave. Like
Hmm.
seriously, I really learned who I was, because everyone used to be like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "I'm a teacher. I'm this. I'm that." And they're like, "That's what you do. That's not who
Hmm.
you are." Like I mentioned earlier. So I had to really dig deep and realize that I'm this compassionate person, and I have empathy, and I have desires and needs and goals and things I love to do. And now I get to go do it. If I want to hop on a plane and fly somewhere, I can do it now, because I don't have to buy three
Yeah.
tickets. I just have to buy
Yeah.
one. And, like, I don't have to worry about feeding like two teenage boys. I just have to feed myself, which let me tell you,
Oh,
whew, that's that
I
saves a
raised a
lot of
boy. I
money.
know. Yeah.
And I my weekends don't have to revolve around being in a ice hockey arena where I'm freezing. Now I can go sit on the beach for a weekend if I want to. And that probably, when I first started taking little weekend beach trips or little mountain trips or hiking and finally meeting some really good core awesome people here. I got such a great group of friends. So I've been very blessed, as far as just coming here, and I'm at home, my kids aren't here, but I'm at home, and I got to rediscover myself. And the one thing, while I'm doing this, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm sitting here rediscovering myself and who I am as a woman, because not only are we rediscovering ourselves, but our bodies, because, we're at that age now, it's going through all of its rediscovering what the heck is going on. Our kids are discovering who they are at the same time that we're rediscovering ourselves. So it's like we have to give our kids grace as well. Like, don't be the annoying mom that texts and calls like every single night, every single night. Now, my one son, my oldest, we will say hi, love you, like every day, a quick text. My youngest, I can say hi to him, and 3 days later, I'll get a yo. And that was probably my hardest thing. Right? I'm like, really? I get a
Yeah.
yo? Do you not miss
Yeah.
me? And I finally stopped doing that. I'm like, I'm not, nope. You know what? He's doing his thing and he's loving life and enjoying what
Mhm.
he's doing. And when he wants to talk, he'll call
Mhm.
me. And he does, 2:30 in the morning when he's upset about something or whatever. And that 2:30 in the morning phone call that I got from him not long ago was probably one of my best phone calls because it's like they still need
Mhm.
us. And that felt
He's coming
good.
to you in his time. Yeah, that I think
Yes.
kind of one thing that we have to always remember too is it almost feels like, all we've ever been as a mom, like you say, you feel like that's your whole identity. And it has been for so long. Like I told you, I've been a mom since I was 17 years old. That's all I've known is being a mother since I was still a child. And so it is that then it's kind of finding yourself, but it's also a reminder to yourself of, a reminder to yourself of not, of I think we feel guilty because we're like, am I being selfish? Because now I'm only focusing on myself. We're still loving our kids and we're still
Yeah.
there for our kids, but it's this whole new self-discovery of I'm going to take care of myself and I'm going to do things for myself. And I'm absolutely
Right.
not being selfish. I deserve to take care of myself and I deserve to do these things for
Mhm.
myself. But one thing I do want to tell you real quick, this story. I haven't told you this yet, but um on the whole, like not having these expectations of these conversations with your kids and expecting them to call you 24/7 and you not constantly bugging them, letting them find themselves and letting them reach out. Of course, yes, we're still going to call them, but
Mhm.
you don't want to be, calling them 24/7 or expecting, 20 different text messages throughout the day or whatever. I went on this trip and it was one of my road trips. This was I think last year, maybe a year and a half ago, I was on a road trip and my daughter, and her boyfriend at the time were going to meet me in, Montana. I picked them up at the airport in northern Montana and then drove them down. We went through Yellowstone. They spent a couple of days with me on my road trip and went camping with me. And
Oh,
that was really
fun.
cool to have them kind of meet me out there and be a little part of this trip, because I do these trips all the time now. And I locked my keys in my car the first night that they were with me in Yellowstone. And so there is no cell service whatsoever in Yellowstone except for a couple different areas. And anyway, we ended up having to get the campers that were camping next to us at like 11 o'clock at night drive me to the emergency phone, which was way at the front of the campground, which is this huge campground. And it was a couple college age kids. They were a little bit older than my daughter, maybe like early 20s something, maybe mid 20s or something. So they're driving us up there and we were kind of telling them, they were asking about my little van, whatever, and we're telling them, whatever. And I'm sitting in the back seat with the one girl, my daughter's up front with the other one. And she said, I just think that's the coolest thing that you go on these trips by yourself. And I just wish my mom would do something like that because I feel
Aw.
like she just said, I feel like now the tables have turned and I'm having to kind of take care of my mom because she's so lost without me that all I do is worry about her all
Aw.
the time. And she only finds her identity in being a mom to me. And she's like, it's so hard. So now I'm listening to her and I'm thinking, wow, this girl she's now carrying this
Mhm.
burden, kind of like we do as parents, right? Not a burden, but we're so focused on taking care
Yeah.
of them. But she just said it just really hurts her to watch her mom struggle so much in this empty nest season that, she felt bad for her. She just said it's really hard and it's hard for me. So I think
Mhm.
that was such a good reminder even to me of, you know, we have to find ourselves outside of our kids. We have to, not only for us, but also for our kids. They need us in a whole different light when they become adults.
Mhm.
It's a whole different relationship. And we have to remember that.
Oh my gosh. I feel like my kids are like my best friends
Yes, isn't
now.
it great?
Like it is like you can have conversations, like real life conversations with them. And my oldest son's kind of political, so it's like we can have these like mature, educated conversations. And it's like I'm just impressed on how much he pays attention to the world. It's like you actually really learn things about your
Yeah.
kids. And another thing I have learned is, or not learned, but I guess discovered is since I moved here, when my kids come here, we are spending 24/7 quality time together. I'm not back in Columbus, Ohio, where they're like, oh, let's meet for dinner on Wednesday. And we go to dinner and you have a little bit of conversation and then they go their way for another week. Like my kids actually can come here and we have a quality week together. They were just here for Christmas. We had 4 days together. We went hiking. We went on a trolley. Like we did things that we wouldn't do if I still lived in Columbus,
Uh-huh.
Ohio. And so that has really helped me as well. And I know a lot of people don't do the crazy thing that I did as
Up and
far
move
as
away, yeah.
moving, but even if the kids up and move away,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, how do you plan like a family vacation once a year? Because that quality time, even if it's for 3 or 4 days, has meant more to me than anything.
It's
And
special.
my kids are, yeah, it is so special. And the memories are amazing. So I have really found a lot of joy in
Mhm.
that. And just watching them and watching them discover like who they are. But in turn, they're watching me
Yep.
rediscover who I am. They're watching me live this life of traveling. I was sick when I moved here with adrenal gland failure, and so like my body had kind of changed and stuff. So now it's like I'm really healthy again. I'm not sick. I'm out doing all this stuff. I'm like in this great place. And they see that too, and they've acknowledged, like they actually see it and love it. And they're like, you can't move back. Like we love coming there. Like we love hiking and doing all that stuff. So it's like they
They
pay
do.
attention more than we think they
Yes, and they
do.
want to see you do this on your own and be okay without them. Yeah, I
Right.
mean, I love that. Isn't that the greatest feeling when your kid tells you? Because mine root me on with my travels. They're like, "Mom, this is just so cool. I'm so glad that you do this. I'm so proud of you. Like, look at you doing all
Yeah.
this stuff and finding yourself." So, yeah, that's so important. I mean, all of that obviously is so important.
Yeah. And my oldest has become a runner now. It's something I've always done. Like I've always run half marathons. So we're now running them together. So we plan different half marathons that we're going to train for. And then, I mean, now he'll kick my butt. He's like
Yeah.
6'3" and his legs are way long. So, I mean, he'll be at the finish line,
Yeah.
when I'm on like mile 9 or something. But the point is we're still there. We're still doing it together. We still have that quality time together. It's something we're training for together. He still needs running shoes, so I'll buy
Yeah.
him running, it's
Still
like
needs you, see?
it's yeah. So I guess like ending part 1 here, because this is going to be a series, you know, just leaving here with a little bit of advice. Like, I'm not ever going to say you can prepare to be an empty nester, because as much as I could have prepared, I couldn't prepare for all the feelings that came
Mhm.
flooding in. But I think with anything, leaving people from this podcast, if you get anything out of it, I love that the both of us took time to discover different parts of our own country, like that we took time to um, explore. It gave us something to look forward to. So, if any advice I leave with people watching, listening, definitely if you drop a kid off at college, figure out what you can go do, even if it's for a long
Yeah.
weekend. Like, don't go straight
Yeah.
home. Like, go on a cute vacation. Try to we'll get into the relationship thing at another podcast. It's like a whole
Yeah.
nother podcast. Um, but I guess that's what I would leave this podcast
Yeah.
with.
Give yourself something to look forward to. Plan something for
I
yourself.
am I'm proud to meet another empty nester who has traveled and continues to, rediscover herself as well.
Same.
So it's women need to be together. We all need to stick together, and I'm sure the men, they can all stick together, but I mean, come on, we did all the
Yeah.
work. I mean,
And
really.
we're more sensitive, I would say sometimes, more kind of sensitive beings, so we take a lot of this harder, I think. Sometimes.
Well, there are babies no matter how
Yeah.
old they are.
Yeah. But it's fun. You get to look forward to a great new type of relationship, which is really cool. So remind
Yes.
yourself that.
I love
Yeah.
it.
It's fun.
I love this
Same.
relationship. Well, Laura, I want to thank you for being on part 1 here, and I hope you'll come
Yeah.
back. Um, and we're going to kind of talk about on our next show, let them go. Let them go. We're going to talk about the let them go theory. In the concept of empty nest syndrome on our next show. But I want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening. Laura, thank you so
Thank you.
much. Everyone have a great evening. And this comes out on Thursday. So I'm wearing my Notre Dame stuff because hopefully Notre Dame's going to beat Penn State. I'm going to have to say tonight, even though we're recording on Wednesday, but tonight, which will be Thursday. So, and my son will be watching that too. He now watches Notre Dame and keeps track of it for me. So, yes. All right. Thank you so much. Everyone have a great night, and I will see you on the next show.
Bye.